this season you've been incredibly logical. And it's very difficult for me to argue some of your cases.
You don't have to argue, mate. You don't have to argue.
A lot of... I'm not saying I have to argue, but you just made that an argument by saying you don't have to argue in a heightened way. No, I don't want to argue. That's what I'm saying to you.
I think it's because...
Just stop talking.
Yeah.
Okay. We've got Rob in New Orleans on a YouTube comment there. So big shout out to Rob who was in New Orleans. And Matt, if you don't mind, I'm going to take a big deep breath and do a massive shout out to a load of people who responded to our Forest All Over the World stuff pre-Bournemouth. Here we go. We've got Nottingham, Helsinki. We've got Tokyo. We've got Wellington in New Zealand. We've got Mississauga. That's it, outside Toronto. Quebec, Fife, Portland, Sligo, New Jersey, another New Jersey, Kurnow, Islamabad, Oregon, Hong Kong, Australia, Paris, Trent End Upper, Trent End Lower, Calgary, Spain, New Jersey, Portland again, Toronto, New Hampshire, Cape Town, also New Hampshire, Idaho, Montreal and Quebec, Lower Clough, Upper Clough again, Ottawa, Albany, New York, Vancouver, Connecticut, Indiana, British Columbia, Chicago, Missouri, and Hudson Valley, New York. That is a Forest All Over the World section. If ever I've seen one, and anyone we missed out, I do apologise. There was so many. How
Are
about
you
that,
just
Matt?
listing places in the world, or do these people actually interact with you?
No, I'm not. I put out a Forest All Over the World section in Reddit. You're wearing a stupid hat.
I am wearing my usual disguise, but because I'm doing this episode from Oban on the west coast of Scotland, I thought I'd give it a little nod with my my tartan hat this evening. But it's not relevant, mate. Talk to us about the list of places in which you just read out. That's incredible. That's a lot of places, and I love jumping from Helsinki and Islamabad to Upper Brian Clough, or wherever it was. That was funny.
Well, it's great. I mean, we actually just got a wave of people. That was specifically on Reddit, but we also had people writing on Facebook who I might have missed, and then various other people on Twitter. And if I've missed you, I'm sorry. We'll get you in at some stage. You can rewrite into us. But it's just class to see all these people from different parts of the world. And obviously, you and I were coming from slightly closer but different parts of the world this weekend to the Bournemouth game. I flew over on a plane on Friday to watch the game with you this weekend, and I kind of wanted to disprove the myth of you being madder than I remember, and you have done nothing to disprove that. I got in the car, you picked me up, I played a practical joke on you which backfired instantly because I said I'd left your bank card back in Ireland when you'd left it at the funeral a few weeks ago, and instead I'm there trying to wrestle with you from booking a flight back to Dublin, saying you're not even going to go to the Bournemouth game, you have to pick up the bank card, and I was there saying I'd FedEx it and you wouldn't listen, and you're just, I think people think I'm bonkers. You are out of control. You are, and you did nothing to dispel that myth. I will get into some of the conversations and adventures we had. We will give some shout outs to people we met along on the weekend at the end of the episode. We won't do them all now. We'll do them right at the end. So anyone who met us, we'll do that at the end. Today we're going to be chatting about, we're going to do the blame game, obviously. We're going to be chatting a bit about the Bournemouth game. We're going to be doing a Where Are They Now section, transfer news, Nketiah and Gimenez. We'll be talking a bit about that, and we'll do a brief look at next weekend's encounter with Southampton. But obviously there's a pre-match for that with the Forest All Over the World fans on Thursday or Friday, so we won't get too much into that. But we'll start with some positivity. The Bournemouth game, I know we're all downbeat. I know they scored late in the game, but we did draw with a team that were better than us last season and the season before. And overall, we had some pretty significant injuries. Heart goes out to Danilo, but a massively disappointing couple of injuries in the second half as well. Aina went down, Elanga went off, and that affected the game. And I just don't think it's that bad that we didn't manage to get over the line against Bournemouth. I hate that we conceded the scrappy goal at the end, and we'll go into the negatives later, and we will have a blame game. But what are your feelings after the game at the weekend and after some of our adventures?
That's the only thing I'm allowed to respond to.
We'll start by, what do you want to respond to first?
You can hear
Go
this
ahead.
back. You've just said a huge amount of things on your own for about 3, 4, 5 minutes. I'm going to go back to the first thing.
Well, I did.
So, bonkers picking up at the airport. Yeah, I wasn't the one that was sat in the ground having fellow Forest fans turn around and ask me to shut up.
Whoa.
Which you did.
I'm going to respond
you
to that
did have
quickly.
people. So that made my day.
Hang on.
So I'll jump forward to the first question you just actually asked me, which was, What were my feelings after the game? Thank God that bloke in front asked you to shut up. And I wonder if anyone around maybe... Because a few people start... You've got quite a potent accent. You're a memorable guy. You're an enthusiastic, a charismatic guy with a unique voice. And I think if people have heard it once, they know who you are. You've been on Forest Focus, a massive podcast, and you've been on this one. We've got our own people that listen to it, and I suspect anyone in the vicinity may have recognised you. And I just have to say to anyone that did, there was a guy in front of Chris and I who turned around and asked him to please wind his neck in, and it was the most thrilling thing for me to hear because I didn't even have to provoke it. So, yeah, I'm the bonkers one.
Sorry, I want to rewind for a second. Sorry, no. For context, by the way, the person who told me to be quiet, that was A, in the 95th minute when I was just shouting at Toivo to get back because I needed him to get back in defence because I thought we were going to lose the game. And that was B, a moment where he turned around and went, can you just relax for a second, please? And I went, okay, I'm really sorry. And I apologised to him several times to the point where he was like, it's okay, don't worry about it, mate.
Please stop apologising to me.
And you turned to me and you turned to me and said, good. I'm glad he did that. You're annoying. I'm really, really happy someone has done that to you. And I'm sitting there going, there's my loyal best mate, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I rest my case. Disloyal.
Not
but anyway,
disloyal.
Doesn't matter. We move on. The other people... But I just want to give a quick shout out to the lady that sat beside me. She was in the middle of our two seats and she let us sit together. Yeah. And her granddad actually used to go to the games with her and he isn't anymore. And it was just really sweet to talk to her. And I can't, for the life of me, her name escapes me, but I just want to give a big shout out to her. The other person beside me was you, and I've absolutely nothing to say to you because you're disloyal. Move on. What were you saying?
It's the only way of pinning you down. Secondly, what did I think of the game? I was disappointed, mate. I wanted 3 out of 3 wins at the beginning of the season. Of course, there are mitigating factors. Of course, I think Nuno got wrong-footed by the tragedy of that Danilo injury, which I think isn't as bad as we once thought. Is that correct? Or
well, it's the reports are saying that he could be out for 6 to 8 weeks rather than a whole season, which is more positive news, but we won't know. It'll take him a while to get back. We don't even know if he'll be registered for the 25-man squad because we'll lose him for at least 2 or 3 months. So I don't know, but yes, reports are he might recover quicker than we first once thought. So that's... but it was horrendous the first 5 minutes into the game. It was horrendous to see and a horrific way to start the season, and really, really tough on him, the poor lad, because he looked like he was going to have a great season
It put a downer on my whole afternoon, if I'm honest. I couldn't come back from it myself, so I don't understand how his teammates, and especially Murillo, come back from that. I know they're professional, they've got to be, but as I said, this is before we knew it was maybe 6 to 8 weeks. It looked like it was season ending. And to me, I thought that could be his Forest career ending because, I mean, it's hypothetical now. If we're talking about if he comes back in 6 or 8 weeks, whatever, it's definitely a bad injury, whatever happens. But honestly, if he'd had an ankle or leg injury that put him out for the whole season, I'm there thinking he's only getting back into a game if he then goes down to the Championship, into a European side. Maybe Steve Cooper takes him on in a year and a half's time at Leicester to get him back going. I don't know. Do you know what I mean? Who knows what the future would have brought? But I was thinking, God, is this the end of what Danilo's career is at Forest? And I'm so glad that I don't think it is. But it turns out as well, he's a real life and soul of the party for us, isn't he? I wouldn't wish that on any player.
He's great. Yeah. I suppose the most warming and heartwarming thing about the whole situation was everywhere around the ground that song just kept ringing out and it would fade off. Danilo, oh, always believe, and then it would fade down and then it would come back up over the course of the sort of 10 minutes while he was on the ground. It was just. Look, it was heartbreaking to see, but there hopefully is some light at the end of the tunnel and hopefully he recovers a lot quicker. We'll park that there and we'll see what the reports come out and see if it is a little less serious than we first thought, and hopefully, fingers crossed, it is. But in terms of the game, that did put a downer on the game in general. I did feel like we actually picked ourselves up really well first half.
Yeah, there was a sort of, what do they call it?
Some really good chances. I felt like we had the best of the first half. And then, as everyone says, the first half was us and the second half was them. That is true. I mean, it's a pretty true
We've talked about this reference before. But again, since I'm reporting from Oban this week on the podcast, I'd like to reference it again. But the Highland Charge, the Bonnie Prince Charlie's famous one, wasn't that a bit like when Yates came on? And it was we kept running forward in a straight line once he was on. Did you notice? We were like... I know you did because we talked about it while we were next to each other.
Yeah, well, I mean, all of a sudden he was suddenly, taking the ball forwards, bringing it out of feet, making nice little passes, making nice little runs, and you couldn't believe that Yates was doing this because in our minds he's a number 6, but he was playing the 8 and he was playing it really well. And of course, the goal came from him charging forward. It was a bit of a ricochet into his path and hitting that shot, and it was parried by Neto, and Woody scores. So, Yates really did come in. It was a tough spot to come in just after that injury. He has to step into that spot and get stuck in the midfield, and he did. So he was amazing, I thought, first half anyway. But one thing I did think about the first half, and this is something I've looked at since, I went back and watched the first half of the game yesterday from obviously TV, different perspective. And I thought, I was having a chat with Chief, who was on there last week from Chicago, and he wasn't too impressed with the game in general. And I was very positive and buoyant, thinking that we had the best of the first half, but not the second half, and it was a disappointing end. First half, actually, Bournemouth had quite a few chances. Like, they had that chance at the back end of Morgan Gibbs-White's penalty shout where they nearly scored and it was scrambled underneath Sells' legs and went out for a corner. They had the disallowed goal as well. Like, we weren't perfect in the first half, and we were far from perfect second half. So there is a lot to improve on. But weirdly, I'm positive about the result. I just don't want to lose on the opening day. Bournemouth fans are the quietest fans I have ever heard in my entire life. They screamed twice, once when they scored and once when they scored the disallowed goal. They were so quiet. It was pathetic. We were sitting above them. I don't even, and they didn't even sell all the tickets. But in general, I'm okay. I'm quite buoyant about the season, despite not getting 3 points in the opening day. But it is a disappointing end.
Well, that's the key. It's a disappointing start because we hoped for more, Chris. You saying despite the opening, it's quite a happy end. It's like saying, despite having points deductions and whatever last year, at least we survived. You were still down on it. I mean, it's great. It's the beginning of the season. We've got lots of time to remedy it. But this opening 3 games, let's not forget, we don't really have time to find our feet because we can make that excuse in a few games' time when we're playing some of the bigger, more difficult sides to beat. I mean, you see Liverpool against Ipswich. They moved on from Klopp. They've moved on from some of their elite players over the past couple of years. But I mean, we'll talk about fantasy football later, right at the end. But I was a bit like, I'm not using Liverpool players. I'm not using Salah and Jota. I just can't see it continuing. They look terrifying immediately in the season. I just wish Forest could have done. We've had this pre-season, right?
Sorry, so you wish Forest could have been like a world-class side? Like
no. I'm just saying that you can hit the ground.
No, but that's what you're saying.
I don't think we could have been world-class side. And there's lots of positives to take from this, by the way. I'm not going to be negative Nelly. Gosh, I know I'm a negative Nelly on this, and I don't mean to be, but you're talking like we're not allowed to be disappointed with the draw against Bournemouth at home at the opening day of the season. After our history then is so frustrating. The fans wanted it.
Well, I have to cut you off there, right? I'm not talking about, like, obviously we're disappointed. Obviously we're 1-0 up. It's the 86th minute. We have an opportunity to get 3 points in the opening day of the season. But I think you have to look at the game as a whole and the situation as a whole. Chief from Chicago mentioned to me last week that, yesterday, he mentioned to me that, playing without Solanke, playing Bournemouth without Solanke at home, opening day of the season, we probably should take 3 points. And I don't disagree with that, but I think we have to get back and sit back and look at a bit of perspective here, okay? Crystal Palace played Brentford there at the weekend. They lost 2-1. Brentford were missing their striker, Tony. Palace looked like they were firing on all cylinders. They probably had a decent pre-season too. They had a good end to last season. And even Eze, he would have looked fairly buoyant after the game. Why? Because they had a good performance. The difference being they actually got less points than us. We got 1 point this weekend. They got 0 because they lost to Brentford. So they had a couple of moments with disallowed goals, etc., and they would have been disappointed. But overall, my point is that, like, Palace would have gone into that game expecting to win, but they're like, no, the season's a long season. These things happen. We'll fix the mistakes. We took a draw at home to Bournemouth, opening this season. I'm disappointed with how it ended. I think the Bournemouth fans were absolutely pathetic, and I stand by the fact that there is some positivity to come out of this.
For all the shouting out you did do throughout the game, you gave so much grief to Bournemouth, and I was pleased because it used to be me that couldn't stand them lot. And I was glad to see you venting some anger on them. They are rubbish. Listen, let's move on to a bit of blame game, Chris. It's time for blame game while we've got some signal. Who do you blame for us not taking away 3 points from our first home game of the season against AFC Bournemouth? Go.
Well, the caveat is...
There's no caveats.
I just want to... I wanted to say something and you didn't let me say it. Can I just say it about the game? Yeah, it's really, really clear that 5 minutes into the second half, Aina and Alanga, maybe I already did say this, but that's energy. That's a lot of energy gone from the game. Like, we lost a lot of energy there. But anyway, okay, blame game. We'll get into it.
I'll start the music again.
Go, okay, start the music again then. Oh. Okay. I blame Gimenez a little bit for not being good enough when he came off the bench. I just felt like his energy was off. He wasn't covering Neko at the back. It just wasn't working. He didn't get back and cover. There was loads of space out that side. We were sat right above that boiler in the second half, and it just, I have to blame Gimenez a little bit, because I just felt like he didn't cover well enough and wasn't good enough on the ball. He's a better player than that, and for me, he gets part of the blame. Who do you blame?
Yeah, well, I'm seconding you, Chris. You've taken that from me, but I did let you go first. I've got Dominguez.
I'm taking it from you.
No, you. Yeah, Dominguez was disappointing. He was disappointing. Probably a bit out of position for him, was he? He's not really on the right. He seemed to be on the right wing when he came on. I just don't know if that's his best place. He's not his most effective. But yeah, I have to say that Gimenez is a strong contender, and we felt that from throughout. You've got to chuck Taiwo in there. He needed to score that header. And put it in my number 2, and I hate this because I love Harry Toffolo, but I thought of a new nickname for him only in the context of things like the blame game. He is Harry. What was it? Oh, I've forgotten it. Toffolo.
You forgot the name.
Sloffalo. As in, he's too slow.
Harry
Toffolo was a bit slow too frequently against Bournemouth, and it just pinged out for me. It was. So who's the winner?
I don't like it. I'm not going to accept this. The winner of the blame... Well, hang on. Toffolo, let's talk about Toffolo's interactions before we get to the end of the blame game. The mistake he made was he could have cleared that ball, right? And he kicked it off Murillo. And it was just the way in which it just wasn't a great clearance. I felt like he did all right on the ball, though, when he came on. He was just a bit caught out the other side. I do want to say, I thought Williams had a decent game in terms of his first half was great. Second half, he was caught out a bit, but then again, there was no coverage for him. The winner of the blame game is... Go on, tell me who it is. It's the same person we both said first.
Well, give me some Taiwo feedback. Because you were shouting at Taiwo a lot.
Taiwo feedback is the guy was just coming back from an injury. He gave us 20 minutes, which is more than I expected from him. The miss at the end is kind of unacceptable as a striker. You'd expect Wood to probably put that away, but strikers do miss chances, and it was a good ball in from Williams actually, so he didn't get any of the blame game. I just
Dominguez.
I know Taiwo. If he starts, he scores.
All right, Dominguez.
Dominguez is the winner.
Sorry, Nicholas Dominguez. We adore you, mate, and you're bloomin' handsome. Everyone talks about Felipe. Dominguez he's got something. He's a handsome chap. I mean, my God, I love that he plays for Forest. I adore him, but he is this week's winner of the blame game.
I just think. You've never ever caveated a blame game by apologising. I'm always the one that apologised, and all of a sudden you're apologising because he's so handsome. But fair play to you. We'll move on. Let's talk a little bit about.
He's just cool.
Yeah,
he's kind of cool.
Who's
he like in our past? He's gotten some cool goals, like weird headers from like 17 yards out of the back of his head, and.
Well, he's got that. You're obsessed with that header he scored against Brentford last year. That's why you're going on like this, because you're just obsessed with that header, which is fine. I think it's totally acceptable.
Would you say that Dominguez is our current Maverick in our squad? Is he our Maverick if we have one?
I've never had you speak about someone who you gave the winner of the blame game to so kindly after. That's never happened. You were always so angry and spitting venom, but fair play to you. You're giving loads of caveats here. A Maverick, who would be the Maverick in our team? I think right now Anderson's a bit of a Maverick. Yeah. I know he came with a big price fee, but he's coming off the bench. We're going to see a bit of Maverick stuff from him soon, a bit of Top Gun, and you can be the Goose with that haircut. But
we've got some Mavericks. We've got a few, but you've got to say Anderson, you've got to say Dominguez, and you've got to say the likes of Aina. You've got to put Murillo in there. We've got a few Mavericks, which is cool. I like that. Morgan Gibbs-White, I guess.
Do you know who's a great Maverick? Do you know who's a great Maverick?
Me.
A great Maverick is Sosa, who was paraded at the game, who's coming in next week. That's going to make a big difference for us. Milenkovic as well. So our defender, who was suspended, we found out 15 minutes before the game, which is a bit ridiculous. Carried over from the Italian league. Is that what it was? I thought he was injured. I was worried for a second,
Yeah. Well, listen, Chris, that was good to get that out of the way. Moving on.
Yeah, okay, you're on a holiday. Okay, we'll try and keep this as short as possible. Let's move into sort of a bit of a transfer space, because there's a lot going on the last couple of days. We've spoke about that Feyenoord forward Gimenez potentially coming to the club, and there was a bid apparently today turned down, or there was some sort of news similar to that. But like Nketiah, looks like Forest are in for Nketiah again, and Arsenal want an inflated fee of sort of 30-35 million, and we're kind of
who do you prefer out the two? Who do you prefer out the two?
Well, that's what I'm asking you. Who would you prefer out the two?
Gosh, that's a good question. Even though I asked it first, I'll give you the credit for it. Who would I like out of the two? I just don't know anything about Gimenez other than the hearsay we're all talking about online. And you know what? Eddie Nketiah. There's a lot of people saying that if he wasn't cutting at Arsenal, why is he coming to Wales and why would we get him for an inflated price? But he knows the Premier League and he'll be desperate to prove himself, and he just never gets the chance to be a regular at Arsenal, right? No?
Nketiah is definitely the better choice. The reason being, he's scored goals in the Premier League. He's done things like go to Stamford Bridge and scored a hat-trick, and he's done some really impressive things. He hasn't had many minutes. Obviously, his goal-to-game ratio doesn't look fantastic, but that's because he's mostly been coming off the bench. He's playing at an elite level with an Arsenal team competing for the league. You have to think that is a better shout for a striker who is a slightly different profile to Wood or Taiwo as well. I'd be very interested in him coming to Forest, if I'm honest with you. The Dutch league isn't always perfect, you know what I mean? I heard Fletch say on the Forest Focus, you get a Ruud van Nistelrooy one season and you get a Dirk Kuyt the other season, although Liverpool fans did like Dirk Kuyt's work ethic. I agree with him. I think you have to sit back and go, okay, we have a player who's played at the highest level in the Premier League and Champions League, etc. That's who I would recommend we go for, and I'd be happier with, to be honest. So hopefully the reports are true. Palace are also apparently going for him. Maybe he won't want to leave London and he might go to them. But yeah, I agree with you there. I think that's the one. Is there any exciting signings that you're excited about other than the striker? Like, I'm excited about Sousa and Milenkovic, who we haven't seen yet. Is there anyone else who's come in who you really think would be great to see starting? Anderson, Milenkovic, Jota Silva, Sousa, other than that striker position that everyone's talking about at the moment? Is there anyone?
Well, to be honest, I'm barely thinking about the striker position. I'm barely thinking about the striker position until you brought it up now. That's why I'm getting much thought. I've been listening to people talking about it and things. For me, I'm excited to see all of our guys. I was disappointed actually on Saturday to not see some of them in use. But I guess Sangare gives him still a chance to be like the star boy after a poor season last season. Yeah, there's a lot to be excited about, Chris. I am excited about all of them. I'll be gutted if Jota Silva might go to Olympiacos now.
Yeah.
Is that a thing? I kind of want to see him play for Forest.
Yeah, and my red hot take was that Jota Silva would be a disappointing signing for us.
I'm not having this. If we get to, then if I might have that. Yeah. You didn't make any calls in terms of that Oracle Cup that we started last week. We haven't got time to go into it now, but I'm going to pull you to pieces on that in a couple of weeks. Like, you can't be making predictions that are if this and if that, because anyone could do that.
Okay. Well, you do it all the time.
Maybe. I don't think I do. I put my butt on the line.
You're going to give yourself credit for being different. Just forget it and get back to the point.
I'm giving myself credit. I'm just, don't take what you're saying to me as the truth. Disputing what you're saying.
Well, anyway, come on. Let's get back to the signings.
Yeah, I'm excited about them all, Chris. Right? And I would like to see more, maybe. I mean, is that Aina out? Does that mean we get Moreira's going to have to play with Nico Williams at the back? Or Toffolo and Moreira?
Moreira plays right back, so no.
But Nico Williams is our alternate left back.
Williams might switch left. We'd probably play Toffolo.
Right, so
No, but we'd probably play Toffolo and keep Williams where he is. That's probably what would happen, right?
Maybe. We'll have to see. It's going to make our Forest Fantasy 5 games.
To be honest, if it happens, then you're the oracle. But
sorry, we're getting lit. I don't know if you're talking on top of me or if we're out of sync.
Here we go. He's going to start talking about Forest Fantasy 5s. For anyone who's listening, he's going to talk about Forest Fantasy 5s, which is a game that he tried to create 2 years ago, never knuckled down and did it, and then 45 minutes into 1:45 a.m. on Friday night, I had to help him come up with the points for the game. Then the next day, I totted up all the points for the game. It was just, it's an effort. But yeah, there's a Forest Fantasy 5 game Matt's trying to implement into this system. I'll tell you what, if people are interested in Matt's Forest Fantasy 5 game, reach out to me and I'll tell you what it's all about. But they won't, because they won't be interested. But carry on.
We're going to test it. I'm going to leave that there in this episode. Next time we're going to put it at the front, because most people are turned off by now. But I think people will be interested if they hear more about it. We told people about it when we were around them after the game, Chris, and they were interested in playing. It's good fun. And you did help with the points. That's what I needed you to do. But finally, you were open to listening to me about a nice idea for our podcast. So thanks finally for listening and helping me out. I was grateful. You know about that sort of stuff because you're obsessed with football games, fantasy games and stuff. So, yeah. Oh, God.
Well, not fantasy games, but fantasy football games. But anyway, we'll go into some fantasy football now and talk about it a little bit because there was prizes and winners, and there was people who I think one person's written in already to collect the prize. But if there's other winners out there from last year, I read the winners out, I think, on the last podcast. I definitely put them up on social media. I might not have read them out. But if you know who you are, I'm going to try and get it up here really quickly just to read them out because the winners do need to be recognised really quick. Oh, gosh, I can't even find it. This is a disaster. I'm feeling, people are definitely switched off. Now, here we go. The 23-24 prize winners are Dennis System, number 1, Forest Cooperlicious, number 2, Radford Red, number 3, Colin Neal from the 22-23 season finished second. He still needs to do Amis for a prize. So, shout out to the winners and get into our league. The league code, if you're not in, and you can still join, your points will still count, is TAGVTH. TAGVTH for the Forest All Over Podcast League. I want to go into sort of what you expect from the next couple of games, specifically the Southampton game of the weekend. We will do a pre-match for that properly with Forest All Over the World fans. But just tell me your expectations going into that, because your expectations seem to be very high going into this weekend.
I don't think wanting to win against teams that we need to be competing well with is high expectations, Chris. I think that I don't expect to beat Southampton. Now, I've not got as much confidence as I did after pre-season. I think we really are going to regret not beating these first 3 teams at some point in the season if we don't clamber some points back. I don't expect to win. I expect to draw, but I'd like a win.
Gosh, you're very down, aren't you?
No,
I mean, it's
I'm not down, mate.
No,
we're talking about football, and it's just
no. You are like I'm looking at this going. We still had a really good pre-season. There were some sloppy moments in pre-season that sort of leaked into the game on Saturday. That's life. We drew 1-1. We have a point. I think we're going to go and beat Southampton, and I'll give you my predictions on Thursday. But I think we're going to go and beat them, and I think we should beat them. Yeah, I think this is a game that we should definitely win.
Do you think Sosa starts ahead of Cho, or do you reckon it's the other way around?
Well, I think Elanga might be rested because he looked like slightly injured there. So I don't know what his training regime is going to be like this week. We might be sort of load managing him, and Sosa will be keen to get in.
Can Sosa play both sides?
You might see Sosa go in.
Can Sosa play both sides?
I don't know, but I imagine so. A lot of wingers do interchange and switch. Sometimes in the middle of games, you'll see.
Well, like Semenyo the other day, and he was meant to be their number 9, and he was switching off the wings.
Oh, yes, Semenyo, who you had in your fantasy football and wanted to actually score. Yeah, I remember that. And then halfway through the celebrations, you went, at least I've got him in my fantasy football team. No one cares about that. I couldn't care if my team loses as long as Forest win. My fantasy football team loses as long as Forest win. But anyway, yeah, look, I don't know. I think Sosa, do you know what? I think Sosa might not start. I think Anderson might start because he's had more of a pre-season with us, and Sosa will come off the bench. I think Milenkovic will start, even though Bolly had a good game. I think you'll see Milenkovic and Murillo, and I want a clean sheet against Southampton. That's my, Newcastle kept a clean sheet. I know they're a better team than us, but with 10 men for 75 minutes against Southampton, they kept a clean sheet. So why can't we, with 11 men and a slightly better team than theirs, even though they've still some Premier League experience from the season before they got relegated? So I want to see us keep a clean sheet away like we did in the 22-23 season, and we won 1-0, and Taiwo scored. My prediction is going to be very similar to that on Thursday, probably, unless I change my mind, which I might. But I have expectations like you. And I think we should win that game, if I'm honest with you. And this is just the beginning. The hope on Saturday was so amazing to see, because even before or during or after the game, even though you go, Forest are doing Forest things, conceding late, you still have that hope for the whole season. So you're not like going, oh no, we need these points desperately. Of course we do. But hope springs.
Yeah.
You can name that the episode, you probably won't. But it does. No?
Hope does spring at Linger, but it's misleading. It's misleading. Like I said, I reckon we're going to draw 2-2. I think Sosa gets a goal and hits the ground running.
No, hang on. I don't need your predictions. You can do them on Thursday. That's part of the pre-match episode. You can send them in.
I'm not around on Thursday, but yeah.
Well, just send them in then. You know, I don't need your prediction today. I just wanted to talk about your expectations for the game before we get to that.
Okay.
Now, before we do a sort of a run out, because you have to go, right? And before I do some shout outs, I'll do some shout outs to people we met over the music. You can press the button and I'll do that over the music. I want to do, you don't have to press the button now because it's not happening yet.
It's off.
Press it off, turn it off.
I have done.
Okay. Sorry. All right. I do want to talk a little bit about, I want to do a bit of a, well, there was a review corner calling me Phil Collins in one of the comments on the YouTube there recently.
Are you sure they meant you?
By the way, do follow us. They definitely meant me because Phil Collins is very, very, very much bald.
Oh, okay, but I get called Phil Collins all the time.
Well, then maybe it was a combination of the two.
But it depends. If I had these glasses on, it wouldn't have been me. But I thought, look at us both. Did they mean me? Who cares?
Oh, God.
Stop talking about it.
We've got to move on. Sorry.
I thought I did that. I just thought I smiled because it said Phil Collins. And I work with a load of guys who call me Phil Collins. My mate Paul's always like, they should make a biopic of Phil Collins, and you should play him, mate. And I'm always like, yeah. So that's depressing.
Well,
it's very depressing to know that. Not that anything wrong with Phil Collins, but to be.
You're quite a good musician as well, so maybe that would be part of it. But look, let's get back to the football because people have switched off now, right? They just have. This is just gone. Stop
talking about what's happened and you drive it forwards then.
You were talking about yourself being Phil Collins.
Yeah. So interrupt me and drive it forwards. Don't have to talk about why that's a problem.
Well, I just did. Shut your mouth. Okay. So I think the main thing we can take away from the weekend and moving forward is it's good to get a warning shot across the bow as well. It's good to see Forest have a game where we had a disallowed goal first half and then we did concede late, but also we struggled to get our rhythm going in the second half, but we didn't lose the game. And I think it's good to see us recover from such a horrific incident that happened in the first half at the very beginning with Danilo. I think it's good to see that happen and the fans rally around the team. It was a weird game. It was an action-packed first half, and it just so much happened in the game. So I think it's good to have that real big introduction back to the Premier League where you realise it's not going to be all.
Fair enough. I'm with that. Yeah.
And I think that will actually do us good this week. And I think players like Morgan Gibbs-White, Elanga, Hudson-Odoi, players at the back like Bolly and Murillo, players like Sells who had a reasonably good game, will look at themselves and go, hang on, next week we really want it. So we'll go to an away game against Southampton really, really, really buoyant and ready to go all guns blazing. So that's kind of my overview summary of how Forest fans should be feeling. But you can feel how you want. And you can feel like Matt and be disappointed if you like.
Just like we...
And yeah,
you're only allowed to feel one. I'm not. Yeah.
I'm not saying you can feel however you want to feel.
Undermining.
I'm just talking about. I think.
Press the music.
You probably.
Let's get the music on. Here we go.
Okay, turn the music on. Before I do shout outs for people at the weekend, there's a friend of mine, Edwin, who reached out on social media. I don't know why he didn't reach out to me personally, asking specifically for Matt to give him a shout out. So can you give Edwin, the Man United fan, a shout out?
Well, Edwin is my favourite listener, based on the fact that he understands you and what it's like to have to deal with you, and it's always such an honour to get to speak to him when when we see each other. It makes me even like Man United a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Edwin.
We're not doing this. We're not doing this. We're moving on. And here we go with the shout outs to the people we saw at the weekend. If I miss you, I'm really sorry. Shane, Irish guy, shook my hand on the way through the airport and then happened to sit beside me on the plane. We had a great chat on the way over. He bought me a drink. Legend.
Nice
Shane,
to meet you, Shane.
Massive shout out to you. Yeah, I think Matt met you at one of the pubs as well. A huge shout out to Joe. I think his name is Joe Cullen. I was at the Nav and he said hi and he asked me to give him a shout out. So a big shout out to him. Adam Wicklow and Christian, we met them. They're red side of the Trent. Separately, we met Adam Wicklow first, had a chat with him. Give him a bit of a shout out.
Yeah, and Reese, Adam, and the guys.
We met Reese as well. Yeah, we did.
I mean, mate, you've got to
cool.
be careful. If someone did take the mickey out of us and go, "Oh, look, it's the podcast cruise." Now, just.
Well, I'm just talking about the people we met, and then they happen to be on podcast, so of course I'm going to say their names. Anyway, Emily and Emma, the duo, were great fun chatting to you, and we waved across at them because they were actually happened to be sitting just across on our row, and we waved at them during the game, and it was actually great to chill with you ladies. It was really, really fun. So massive shout out to them.
I was a bit starstruck, but that was cool.
Yeah, and Temps I've met him on Forest Focus, but I met him for the first time there. It was great to chat to him. And Matt Davies after the game as well. He was on Football Focus. That's massive for Matt Davies, so let's give him a bit of a shout out there. That's pretty cool. Like being on Football Focus on the
I wish we could have. I didn't get a chance to speak to him about it. That's very exciting. Proper behind the scenes. But he's a professional journalist as well, so it's like he deserves that, right?
Yeah. I mean, so it's like obviously he would do well with that, and fair play to him. Elliot, great to see you again. Came up to us, spoke to us a little bit about potentially seeing us at the Fulham game. Really, really nice to see you. Dave Sanders, as always at halftime. I always seem to now have a point with him at halftime whenever I'm at games, and we were in the club, so I could get across to him. We had a drink. Huge shout out to you, Dave.
I love how you give
Byrne.
shout outs and you have to expand the word huge because they keep getting bigger and bigger. Huge shout out for this one.
Okay, well, big shout out to
just a big one.
Greg. A big shout out to Greg, Laura, her sister Kelly, I think it was, and their parents.
God, by that point,
Amazing
mate,
to meet you.
it's not worth reminding me.
We were in Ruddington with them. I think it's a town just outside Nottingham. We were there having beers, and I went up to a bloke who was singing and asked if I could do the karaoke next song, and he then told me he was actually a singer doing professional singing, and I curled up in the ball and went away.
That was amazing, yeah. Mate, I was so drunk. We've got to wrap up there. Are you allowed to divulge personal information of people?
Well, hang on. I just want to say one more thing. It's very important. Well, it's fine. I want to say one more thing. Why don't you give a shout out to the Bournemouth podcaster who you shook his hand after the game after you were starstruck seeing him and said he's a Bournemouth podcast? Why don't you do that? You can call this episode Disloyal to the Death, because that's what you are. You went and shook his hand. You're an absolute snake. And you're a disgrace.
On that note, mate. On that note, I'm going to say goodbye and get back to my holiday.
But yeah, we have an episode coming out. Obviously, a Forest of the World pre-match, pre-Southampton. That'll be out probably around Thursday. So look out for that on all the audio places on YouTube as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris.